simple as that. If that's how darts is going and that's how it gets played now, have fun. I'm off ski. I'm away going for a game of golf or something. I ain't going through that again. Absolute bull.
Okay, just for us, if you could explain, is that particularly the extra slow play from Mensur?
I don't know, for a start, we were told what tables we're on. I ended up on the wrong table.
This is the story of a table, a missing instruction, and a match that pushed a two-time world champion to the edge of walking away from the sport he had spent his entire life playing. On the 28th of December 2020, Gary Anderson and Mensur Suljović walked onto an empty stage at Alexandra Palace for a third-round match at the PDC World Darts Championship, and what unfolded over the next 90 minutes became one of the most talked-about controversies in the modern history of the sport. Anderson won 4 sets to 3, and then he absolutely lost it. Before we get to the incident itself, you need to understand who these two men are, because without that context, what followed looks like a minor spat about furniture rather than what it actually was. Gary Anderson, nicknamed the Flying Scotsman, is one of the most naturally gifted dart players who has ever lived, and the numbers back that up completely. Born in Musselburgh, East Lothian in 1970, he holds the record for the highest official free dart average ever recorded, 133.35. His 2 PDC World Championship titles came in 2015 against Phil Taylor and in 2016 against Adrian Lewis, and his 2018 World Match Play victory made him only the 3rd player in history to complete the Triple Crown of darts, joining Phil Taylor and Michael van Gerwen. 5 9-dart finishes are to his name, 3 of them on live television. His throwing style strips everything down to its essentials, fast and smooth and rhythmic, the kind of action where he arrives at the oche, throws 3 darts and walks away before most players have finished their pre-throw routine. That speed and that rhythm are the whole foundation of how Anderson plays darts, and that detail becomes the entire point of this story. Mensur Suljović is a completely different kind of player. Born in Tutin, Serbia in 1972, he left during the Yugoslav wars and settled in Vienna, where he has lived ever since, and the PDC lists him as representing Austria, though he does not actually hold Austrian citizenship because 2 separate applications were rejected on bureaucratic grounds, once in 2014 and once again in 2020. What Austrian darts fans got instead was a player whose stage presence is unlike anything else in the professional game. Every trip to the oche for Suljović involves the same ritualized sequence of movements, the same deliberate pauses, the same careful placement of each dart before release, and the reason for all of it is specific and well documented. Suljović developed that slow and controlled approach to fight dartitis, the psychological condition sometimes called the yips that nearly finished his career entirely. And his pre-throw routine exists not as a tactic, but as a mechanism for staying functional under pressure. Sky Sports analyst Rod Harrington described it plainly. Because his throw was so unorthodox and he was so slow at times, people used to think he was winning games because of those tactics. But it was just the way he played. They tend to overlook how skillful he is and how much bottle he has. 40-1 odds going in, and he still won. Bottle might actually be an understatement. Long before the tablegate match, these 2 men had been producing extraordinary darts together, and Suljović for a period was the player Anderson simply could not handle, winning 4 of their first 6 meetings and earning the unofficial title of Anderson's bogey player. The defining early encounter arrived in September 2017 at the Champions League of Darts in Cardiff, where Suljović walked in as a 40-1 outsider and proceeded to dismantle the field. During the group stage, he had already beaten Anderson 10 legs to 3, and that alone should have been a warning. The semi-final produced a 160 checkout to eliminate Raymond van Barneveld, and then came the final, back against Anderson again. Anderson built a 3-1 lead, Suljović reeled off 5 consecutive legs to take control, Anderson clawed it back to 9-all, and then Suljović found double 14 on the last leg to win 11-9 and claim £100,000 in prize money. That title remains the only major TV honour of his career, and the knowledge of what Suljović is capable of when conditions suit him is exactly what made 2018 so remarkable. The 2018 World Match Play Final in Blackpool ran to 40 total legs, which tells you most of what you need to know about how it went. The format requires 18 legs won with a 2 clear leg cushion, and neither player could open that gap, sending the match into extra time again and again until Suljović's 104.43 average and Anderson's 101.41 had both been fully spent across an extraordinary contest. Suljovic out-averaged Anderson across the entire match, hit 14 maximums and nearly completed a 9-darter, and Anderson still won 21 legs to 19. The final dart gave Anderson his triple crown. His summation of the whole rivalry was typically direct. I love Mensur to bits, but I hate playing against him. That combination of genuine warmth and genuine frustration is the only frame that makes sense for what came next. The 2020 to 2021 PDC World Darts Championship opened at Alexandra Palace on the 15th of December 2020, with around 1,000 fans present, and that turned out to be the last crowd noise the tournament would hear. London moved into Tier 3 coronavirus restrictions the following day, and the remaining 3 weeks ran behind completely closed doors, with players, officials, and silence as the only constants. COVID protocols changed the look and feel of the tournament in ways that went beyond empty seats. Handshakes between players and referees were replaced with fist bumps or distant acknowledgements, daily health screenings became routine, and a controlled bubble structure kept the event running. Among the more visible changes was something that had never appeared at a PDC World Championship before. 2 separate player tables on stage, one positioned to the left and one to the right of the oki, replacing the single shared table that had always sat on the right-hand side. The reasoning was straightforward enough, giving each player their own space for equipment and water, reducing the need to share surfaces during a pandemic. Each player would be assigned a specific table before walking on. The arrangement would keep things clean and orderly, and everyone would know exactly where to go. The idea was simple. The execution, on one particular night in late December, went sideways almost immediately. Seeded 13th, Anderson entered the match as the clear favourite against the 20th seeded Suljovic, and the assignment was routine. Anderson on the right-hand table, Suljovic on the left. Players received those instructions just before the walk-on began. During the walk-on, Suljovic went to the right-hand table. Video captured the moment clearly enough, showing him glancing toward officials and pointing at the table with a gesture that looked very much like asking whether it was his. And what the video also shows is that no official intervened to correct him. No correction came. Suljovic put his equipment down and settled in, and that was that. Anderson arrived on stage second to find his assigned table already occupied, which meant he spent the entire match using the left-hand table instead. And the real problem this created was not about table preference or superstition. Anderson explained it precisely in the aftermath. As soon as I'd thrown and walked back to the table, he was standing with his back to me. If you watch any dart game, the player walks back and walks round the other one who is approaching the oki. His back is towards me and the board, so now I have to cut across the oki. If he turns round to throw, I'm walking in front of him and that puts me in the wrong. Every single visit to the oki for the entire match meant Anderson cutting across the front of the stage rather than looping behind his opponent in the normal way, constantly aware of Suljovic's position, constantly adjusting, never able to settle into the automatic rhythm that defines how he plays at his best. And none of that yet accounts for the pace issue that was also developing on stage. A seesaw was how Anderson later described it, and set by set, that assessment holds up. Anderson took the first set 3 legs to 2 after Suljovic missed 4 set darts. Then Suljovic won the second 3-2. Then Anderson won the third as Suljovic missed 4 darts at double 16 in the deciding leg. Through those opening sets, multiple accounts described Suljovic's pace as even slower than usual, with his first set average dropping below 80, and Anderson was watching all of it and drawing his own conclusions about what was happening. Suljovic then whitewashed Anderson in the 4th set 3 legs to 0, wrapping it up with an 81 checkout in 11 darts, and followed that immediately with another whitewash in the 5th set to take a 3-2 lead in sets and 6 consecutive legs in a row. The match was an hour old and Anderson was losing. And here's the thing that Anderson noticed and spoke about afterwards. As Suljovic gained the lead and needed to close things out, the pace picked up noticeably. Suljovic began moving quicker, throwing faster, no longer taking the extended pauses that had defined the first hour of the match, and that shift in tempo sharpened Anderson's suspicion that what he had been experiencing earlier was deliberate. Anderson won the 6th set 3-0, then the 7th set 3-0, 6 legs in succession to close the match on double 18. Final result: Anderson 4 sets, Suljovic 3, with Anderson posting a 92.49 average to Suljovic's 89.78, missing 33 darts at doubles along the way and somehow winning anyway. 90 minutes for a best of 7 match in darts is a long time, and by the end of it, Anderson had a great deal to say. Reporters waiting for Anderson after the match were kept waiting a while longer because he refused at first to speak to anyone, and when he finally sat down with Sky Sports presenter Michael Bridge, what came out was one of the most unfiltered post-match interviews the sport had produced in years. On the overall experience, absolutely dire, absolute joke of a game. Everyone says, why do you get cheesed off with darts? That's one of the reasons, absolute bull. On Suljovic's pace and the contrast that had caught his attention, pointing directly at the change between the early set and the final set. Did you watch the last set, or the third set? Was he slow then? No, he was not slow. On darts as a whole, and whether he still wanted to be part of it. If that's darts, I'm off ski. If that's how darts is going and that's how it gets played now, have fun. I'm off. I'm away for a game of golf or something. I'm not going through that again. On the table specifically, for a start, we were told what tables we were on, and I ended up on the wrong table for the duration of the game. Mensur went to the wrong table. I had to bite the bullet and get on with it as usual. You're walking past the table you should be at, but you've got to cut across because the boy's standing there, on what he actually wanted out of the night. I just want to play darts. I'm sure there are 90% of folk watching at home. They probably turned over and watched Corey or something. I would have. 2 days on, Anderson beat Devon Peterson 4-0, and before that match, Peterson theatrically directed Anderson toward his correct table at the stage entrance in a moment the internet found considerably funnier than Anderson likely did. The commentary from Anderson expanded further in those 2 days, taking direct aim at Sky Sports analyst Wayne Mardle, who had apparently suggested on air that slowing an opponent down was a legitimate competitive tactic. Anderson's response. Wayne Mardle's comment the other night, what a ticket. If you're playing a player, you need to put him off, you need to slow him down. That's coming from a commentator on Sky, what a numpty. That's a great lesson to teach kids, isn't it? Rod Harrington then entered the conversation by suggesting Anderson might give retirement some thought, and that particular intervention produced the most Anderson response possible. I probably would have done if Harrington hadn't piped up. Now I'm going to play for a long time. If I can make it till I'm 90 just to make sure I cheese him off, I'm going to play until I'm 90. Suljovic addressed the controversy at the Ladbrokes Masters in early 2021, and his response arrived in the form that Suljovic always communicates when the stakes feel personal, through broken English, visible emotion, and a directness that made the argument difficult to dismiss. On the table. I never see the table left side. This side is the problem. On the accusation of deliberate slow play. I played slow. This is not correct. Really, I never do it. Gary Anderson never. And then, most plainly of all, I swear on my children. Gary Anderson is my friend. I would never do this. The big problem was with me. That last line is where the whole controversy either falls apart or comes into focus depending on what you already know about Suljovic. The big problem was with me is not a man describing tactics. That is a man describing a genuine struggle to hold himself together in a high-pressure match, on a silent stage, in a COVID bubble, playing against a player whose whole identity is built around speed and rhythm that are the exact opposite of everything Suljovic needs to function. His slow routine exists specifically because when the anxiety gets bad enough, the dartitis comes back and the throwing mechanism locks up entirely. The PDC reviewed no formal complaint and issued no sanctions against either player, and the matter ended officially, even if the debate did not. Tablegate landed so hard within the darts community, not because a player used the wrong table, but because it forced the sport to look directly at a problem it had been avoiding for years. Professional darts has no formal shot clock. Under the general rules, a notional maximum of 1 minute per visit applies on paper, but that rule almost never gets formally enforced. Referees have discretion to step in, but the threshold for what counts as deliberately disruptive pace versus a genuine playing style has never been clearly drawn, and that ambiguity is the whole problem. Without clear rules, every slow play accusation turns into a debate about intent, which is a debate that never gets resolved. Suljovic had been through versions of this before. Back in July 2019, Jermaine Retamena lost to him 10 legs to 1 at the World Match Play, averaging just 82, and on Dutch television afterwards called Suljovic a cheater before later issuing an apology. A decade of the same accusation from different opponents, all pointing at the same unresolved question. What nobody in authority acted on after 2020 became undeniable by December 2025, when Joe Cullen lost to Suljovic 3-1 at the World Championship, and referee Kirk Bevins intervened on stage to warn Suljovic about excessive celebration time, a level of official intervention almost never seen at this level of the sport. Cullen posted on social media, "If that's darts, I don't want no part of it. The old guard will say it's part of the game, but word it how you will, it's cheating. That's not darts." 5 years after Tablegate, same stage, different player, same argument. Placing Suljovic's pace on the broader spectrum of darts players makes the picture slightly more complicated. Ricky Evans, known as Rapid, throws 3 darts in 3 to 5 seconds and once recorded a 180 in 2.17 seconds, occupying one extreme end of the scale entirely. At the other end, historically sits Terry Down, a player from the 1970s and 1980s widely regarded as the slowest in the sport's history, whose ritualistic habit of holding each dart above his head for extraordinary lengths of time before releasing it made opponents and commentators alike struggle to keep a straight face. Against Down standard, Suljovic barely registers as slow at all. Retirement never came. Anderson went on to reach the final of the very same 2020 to 2021 World Championship, losing to Gerwyn Price 7-3 on the 3rd of January 2021, and his career since has been a direct answer to everyone who took his post-match threats seriously. Multiple titles followed in later years, a European Darts Grand Prix victory in 2024, and a semi-final run at the 2026 World Championship at age 55. Michael van Gerwen captured it well years earlier. Gary said so much crap in his life, he retires every year. He was right. Suljovic's career has settled into a lower tier than his 2017 to 2019 peak, but his capacity for breathtaking moments never left him entirely, and the evidence for that arrived in December 2022. Trailing Michael van Gerwen 3-1 at the World Championship, Suljovic was on the edge of elimination when van Gerwen, needing 121 to close out the match, decided not to go for the bullseye and left himself double 16 instead, apparently confident enough in the outcome to take the safer route. Suljovic was left on 161, treble 20, 60, treble 17, 51, bullseye, 50, the checkout was complete. Wayne Mardle, the same analyst Anderson had called a numpty 2 years earlier, screamed into his microphone, he's not gone for it. He thinks someone averaging 101 over 5 sets is not going to take out 161. 60, 51, bull. That is insane. That is insane. Tablegate was never really about a table, and the players involved probably knew that before they left the building that night. 2 players whose approaches to the sport put them in direct conflict with each other. A rulebook that gives officials no reliable mechanism for resolving that conflict. A man fighting his own anxiety on a silent stage with no crowd to absorb any of the pressure. And one of the most talented players the sport has ever produced, sitting in an empty arena in December 2020, watching darts develop in a direction he could not accept. Gary Anderson did not walk away. Mensur Suljović never changed who he was. The PDC still has no shot clock. Somewhere in Alexandra Palace or Blackpool or wherever the next major tournament lands, a player will walk off stage and say what Anderson said in 2020. If this is darts, I'm off ski. The debate Tablegate opened has never closed because the question at its center remains unanswered. And that question is simply this: what is fair in a sport where playing slowly is not against any rule?